a political side of it, and then there's the real story.
There's a lot to unpack right there. It wasn't quite the interview I thought that was going to be.
There's a reason for it.
This will be officially my favorite podcast I've ever done. So I'm curious about when you started First Majestic in 2001. Like, how did you, some of the people in our audience are entrepreneurs or they're just getting started. How did you decide, hey, I'm going to start a silver mine, I'm going to start a metals company, and how did you get to there when you started in 2001?
Yeah, no, because I came from a copper company, right? So, I was on the floor of the Vancouver Stock Exchange from 84 to 89. So I worked for three of the largest national banks in Canada as a pro trader. So, and then when everything went electronic and all the floor traders got laid off in 1989, I found myself out of a job. And I started I worked for Murray Pesum, actually. I'm not sure if you know that name, but went to work for him for about a year or so, and learned the right and wrong things, what to do out there. And, being I love math and I love finance, and I just kind of fell into mining because, Vancouver is, such a mining centric city. And it just all kind of came together. And then I put First Quantum together in 92. And that was, more or less just a series of people I built around me that kind of put that company together. It was, I was quite young. I was in my early 30s, and it worked out quite well, obviously. Then I kind of went into retirement in 2000, watched the NASDAQ bubble burst over the next couple of years, and saw gold at 250 and silver at $5, and figured it was time to put together another company. And then, there's too many gold companies out there as far as I was concerned. There was not enough silver companies, and silver to me looked like copper. And I decided, because there was such a niche market, in my opinion, because there's no players really out there except for a small handful, I figured silver was the place to go. And that's why I put together a silver company.
What's the addressable market for silver? Like, when you think about, as long as I can remember, I think I was a kid, I was probably 1980. I think it was the Hunt brothers or the Bass brothers. Someone tried to corner the silver market, got themselves blown up. I have a lot of my friends that accumulate silver like crazy. What's the addressable market there? Like, in your opinion, I mean, you've been in it for such a long time. What is the future of the silver market look like, and what's the addressable market for silver look like? Because I know you started a store, which I'm fascinated with too, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, I love technology, and I guess being the founder of a copper company, I learned the importance of metals in technology. And in the early 2000s, when I was looking at silver, I realized how important it was in the whole scheme of things when it comes to what we do. Whether it's computers or cell phones or automobiles or refrigerators or fridges, or pretty well every single device that we need as the human race consumes silver. And I figured that was not going to change. The difference back then was there was no electric cars or solar panels. Now today, we have two industries that are consuming 30% of the world's supply of silver, which didn't exist 10 years ago. So last year, the human race consumed 1.2 billion ounces of silver, and the miners produced 820 million ounces. And only about 125 to 150 million is recycled. So there's this huge deficit of somewhere between 200 and 300 million ounces last year. And that's been going on now for 6 years in a row. Consumption this year, 2024, is expected to be about 1.4 billion ounces. The miners aren't going to produce anymore. Miners are 820, call it. And recycling's not changing much because recycling doesn't pay. There's no money in it. So the deficits continue. So that has to affect price eventually.
So, I mean, obviously you're not going to comment on this, but if you looked at your current price of First Majestic and the price of silver, there's probably an apex part, right, where the price of silver gets to a point where First Majestic's printing money.
Well, we have in the past. It's of course, we've got inflation, and those types of things. Your employment costs increasing, and the peso has been quite weak, which has hurt us, unfortunately. The peso has been quite strong. Pardon me. So that's but more. We're cash flowing. We're positive, and that's not the issue. But when silver was $50, it was a lot of fun. We'll get back there, and we're one of the top three. Call it in the top. There's only three silver companies to buy in the world, or actually four, I guess. Hecla, Coeur, Pan American, ourselves. So those, outside of those four, who's there to buy? And then we all produce. Funny enough, we all produce about the same amount of silver. We're all about 10 million ounces of silver. We are 25 million of silver equivalent, but that other amount is all gold. In the case of Hecla, that would be their largest metal would be zinc. In the case of Pan American, their largest metal would be gold, and Coeur d'Alene, their largest metal would be it's actually a mix of lead, zinc, and copper. They produce a bunch of stuff. But so we're 50 some odd percent silver. Hecla would be probably 25. Pan American would be probably 25. Coeur would be about 30. We're about 50, 55.
If you're at 50, 55 silver, what's the rest?
Gold.
Got it.
Just gold.
Got it.
Just
Wow. Okay. Well, when I met Jason, he told me you were his favorite CEO besides me, but I think he said that I was his favorite CEO, but he was on my payroll. So I realized, and he's been talking about interviewing you for like at least 5 years. So I don't know why this was an act of God to get you on the show, but I'm glad you're here. But I think we've been trying to get you on the show for as long as I can remember. I think we tried by Twitter, but Christy, our producer, somehow got you on the show. So I'm glad you're here. We're big fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Keith can talk about it, but like La Encantada, which is in Mexico, that's one of the mines that I think are coming online. I'll let Keith touch on that, but he's got several mines in Mexico that are producing a ton of silver. And Keith, I don't know why this is, and you can talk about this too, but in the Earth's crust, silver is harvested at about a ratio of 7-to-1, meaning 7 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold. But when I do the math today, the silver to gold ratio is sitting around 85 or 86. What that means, Todd, is for every 80, it takes 85 or 86 ounces of silver to actually equal in fiat 1 ounce of gold. I mean, it's just a total disconnect. Historically,
is it disconnected, Keith?
Oh, absolutely. We can get into it throughout the interview, but silver trades 1 billion ounces a day in the paper markets. So we call it, let's say there's 320 trading days in a year. So that's 320 billion ounces of silver trade in the paper markets per year. The miners produce 820 million a year. So the leverage, do the math. That's like what, 400 to 1 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, we're, the leverage is crazy. So that's why we open the mint, because for us to take our production off the market, and you do that math, for us to take 10 million ounces off the market, just for easy math, that's the equivalent of taking 3 billion ounces out of the paper market.
Yeah.
So it's not like spot, like Bitcoin, right?
That's the difference between ETF and the new IBIT and the ETFs for Bitcoin. They have to have a treasury of 1-to-1 ratio. And then someone like SLV, which I'm not a fan of, it's not a recommendation, or PSLV, which I am a fan of, which we can talk about. Yeah, there's derivatives. There's massive paper, could be shorting in play, obviously. It's like you said, it's 400 to 1. How can you trade all that paper when there's not?
It doesn't make sense to me, though, because if you have a demand that's greater than what you're mining, how's the demand being met? Keith, how's the demand being met if you have a demand that's greater than mining?
It's a big question, and that's why I criticize the Silver Institute, because when we're not members, I canceled our membership of the Silver Institute a few years ago because I'm so displeased with the data that they publish. Because that's a very valid question. I would love to have answers myself. I remember when Putin was in the gold vaults in Russia when he was holding, his gold bar. This is like, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago. And, pretty famous photograph of him inspecting the Russian gold hoards that they've been buying over the last several years. And so he's standing in the vault, and I zoom in on the photograph, and along the back wall, there's this whole line of pallets of silver bars. And I go, wow, there's a lot of silver there. So, and they don't report it. So, is that where the silver's coming from? I have no clue. We know China's not exporting silver. It's against the law in China to export silver. We know in India they're buying silver. They're big consumers. So it's a very valid question, and it's a very secretive industry, and we don't have an answer.
It's a weird weird idea, though. You saw a race recently with Bitcoin. The miners are mining 900. They're buying 4,000.
40,000.
Oh, it went parabolic, right?
Yeah, BlackRock's buying.
Right. So the price almost doubled, basically.
Yeah, but it took BlackRock like 3 or 4 months to buy more than what Michael Saylor's been accumulating for
It
years.
seems like it was 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, it might have been
very quickly.
But that's Keith. How come like every hard asset and commodity, keeping this in mind, has moved up significantly from their all-time lows, yet silver here sits at $25 an ounce? Keith, do you think it's that the macroeconomic indicators and like you said, business, everything that has to do with silver in all of our products, goods and services, do you think it's kind of kept suppressed because if it wasn't, the goods and services would go through the roof as far as cost goes?
Well, you ask the same questions I ask every day. So like if you're Sony or Tesla or BMW, doesn't really matter who, and you need to have 20 million ounces of silver for your product that you're producing in 2024. You're going to approach the big traders, which is pretty well JP Morgan or HSBC or whoever they are.
Yep.
And you're going to sign a contract for delivery of those ounces, and you're going to tell that bank to deliver those ounces to whatever port that they need to be delivered to. So as a miner, we sell our ounces through a trader to the banks. The banks know how many ounces they're going to be getting because, they know the market quite well. Of course, they leverage those in the paper market because they're shorting against that purchase. So Sony buys 20 million ounces. They leverage that up, 300-400 times in the paper market. And it's in their best interest to not allow that spot price to change that dramatically, because all of a sudden, and that whole run in 2011 from $40 or call it 35, depends on who you listen to, but $40 to $50, that was all short covering, and the banks were in super stress during that period of time. There's talk about that's why Bear Stearns, I think it was, or whomever ultimately went bankrupt because of their big paper derivative position on silver. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But there's lots of information on the internet that you can find, that discusses that topic. There's a big short position in the market, and it's all held by the banks, and it's all because silver is a very commercial market, and it's very thin. And that's these guys and these are young 30-year-old MBAs out of college that have no clue about, the supply and demand fundamentals of the metal, yet they've been shorting silver for the last 30 years. But, they don't know that the above ground supplies of silver back in the 80s was 5 billion ounces. And back then, there was no electronic uses. The electronic uses just started coming in. Today, the above ground supplies are about 1 billion ounces, and it's all in ETFs. So all that above ground supply has been eaten away in electronics, and and no one's recycling cell phones or computers. All that computer waste is just thrown into dumps.
So you got 1 billion ounces above ground, cell phones being thrown away. I mean, how much of that silver is actually reharvested?
It's a very small amount, and these are numbers that we talk about within the industry that, and they're not exact, but 90% of all silver that's been mined is gone. It's in waste dumps. It's in the ocean. It's gone. 90% of all gold that's been mined is still sitting on the surface
Mhm.
in vaults, in hoards, and so on and so forth. So, silver is very much a depleting asset because, in this cell phone, like, my little Apple here, there's about $2 or $3 of silver in this thing.
Mhm.
And to take it out, it would cost a fortune because Apple is very good at embedding that silver into that circuit board. And there's not too many technologies out there that can extract it in an economical way. So no one, recycles computer waste.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of our silver goes. So it just, gets, put in waste dumps, unfortunately. And that's what happens.
Keith, I'm pretty a layman on this, and I'd a friend of mine, actually my business partner owns a gold mine in Alaska, and he walked me through how they built it, and I'm like, insanity. So they take the raw ore in these big bags and they put them on a boat and they ship them to Germany where they're smelted and they're paid. So I'm like, you take it from Alaska to Germany. I mean, this is insane conversation to me. And that the buyers of it know how to buy the bag, which I guess they can figure out how much gold's in there. It seems like insane the way it's done. Can you walk us through how you mine silver and like the steps from we have a mine, do we take a little pick in there and get it out and we get a little cube
we
and
wash
then,
some rocks.
and how does it go from wherever it starts to wherever it ends?
Yeah, well, every mine is different, and every country is different. So it's not a simple answer. But what I can tell you is that it's absolutely almost criminal that we sell silver for $25 an ounce today.
Yep.
Because the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into the production of that metal is horrendous. And it starts from decades ago, whereby as a mining company, you drill a hole and you're relying on geologists that are telling you, okay, this is the right place to drill a hole. And so you believe them and you finance it. You got to raise the money. So you drill the hole, crossing your fingers that you actually hit something. And lo and behold, you hit some silver. And then you have to drill more holes because you can't just, rely on one hole. So you need to drill dozens and dozens and dozens of holes over, a lengthy period of time, 4, 5, 10 years in some cases. So then you have to put out proper disclosure to the regulatory authorities in order to raise substantial money. You have to, you're going to rely on the governments to permit the process along the way because, a variety of permits are necessary. Depending on the size of the property and the size of the asset or the size of the resource that you drilled out, it depends on how much money you're going to have to raise because that is going to be dependent on the size of the mill you're going to build. So you're by 10 years in, you're starting construction, and you're by the time you're in production, you could be call it 10 to 15 years in, and you're probably 200 million minimum, and probably even up towards 500 million, or even if it's a larger mine, up towards $1 billion invested to that point. You still don't have any revenue yet. You're still relying on permits. You're still relying on governments. You're crossing your fingers that the governments don't change, regulations don't change, that the governments are still supportive of what you're doing. You hope to get the communities on side. You hope to get people, employed, because a lot of times you have to build towns, build electrical infrastructure, build water infrastructure, build roads, because lots of times these mines are in the middle of nowhere. So now you're 15 years in and you're finally into revenue. So, whatever the number is, 500 million to $1 billion invested, it's going to take you likely 10 years to get your investment back. So at that point, it's all metal price, right? And we all know how metal prices fluctuate. So you have to have a pretty darn good asset and good people in place that are watching their costs in order to, pull out a profit from that operation. So by 20 years in, 20 some odd years in, and every mine's different, of course, as I said earlier, you start to, get a positive cash flow. And hopefully your mine is going to be operating for the next 20 to 30 years after that. And the community is robust and bustling, and you build schools, elementary schools, secondary schools, and you're educating people, and there's stores opening, maybe a movie theater in town, and you built a community from zero, from scratch. And I've done it myself a number of times, where we have 5,000 people living in a town that's all run or all relying, on this one mine that didn't exist 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And now it's a bustling community, and we are the guys that built it from scratch, and we're supplying all the revenue for that community. And it's pretty exciting. That's why I do mining, because I love it. And this builds a long-term wealth, right? Because these kids that we're bringing up, that we're putting through school, go on to university and learn other education, and they build wealth among their governments or among their communities. But it's a big job, super capital intensive.
15 years, that much capital intensive, and you convinced someone to let you do that?
I've done it all my career.
Isn't that crazy?
How do you know the hole's any good?
You have to keep, you got to rely on professionals around you. I've got 300 geologists and 500 engineers that work for me. So that's their job.
How many times have you drilled a hole and there was nothing there?
Oh, many times. Hundreds of times.
Hundreds of times.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, if not more.
I'm fascinated that you mine in Mexico. What's it like in general with the foreign risk of being down there?
Well, Mexico, 20 years ago when I put First Majestic together was easier for sure. September 2023 was our 20th year anniversary. But I put First Quantum together in 1992. So, I early on in my career, I'm going to Africa and I'm surrounded by, militia, and then, you talk about security issues, compare, Africa to Mexico, it's a little bit different issue, but, at least, the education in Mexico is slightly higher, and, they're, I don't want to get into too much detail, but, I learned a lot about risk when I was operating in Mexico, when I was operating in Africa. So when I showed up in Mexico in 2002, it was quite refreshing to me. I think this is great. This is like, wow, this is fantastic. So
first of all, they have tacos in Mexico, and I've been to Africa, and I love the safari, but I'd rather eat the Mexican food. I'm just kidding. So what did you do in Africa versus Mexico?
We mine copper. Yeah, so I built the first mine in Africa, Southern Africa, in 35 years. So wow. We were the first investment in the copper belt in 35 years.
Where was that at in Africa? That
was Ndola, Zambia. The copper belt, yeah.
But I'm curious about how this is what I'm trying to say is, like, people ask me all the time, like, Todd, how did you raise 500 million? How do you do this? How do you do that? And I said, well, this is how I did it. But the question is really, you went to Zambia. How did you know that there was a copper mine in Zambia? Like you had to make a decision to go to Zambia. You didn't randomly just look at a map and say, okay, Zambia is the place I'm going. You had intel that led you to get there. And I don't need to be specific, but was it just industry knowledge, or someone called you up on the phone and said, hey, I got a great idea, and it resonated? How did you get to Zambia?
It was a phone call. I put together First Quantum back in 92, as I said, and I was looking around for assets. Back then, Venezuela was quite hot. Peru was quite hot. There was a pretty famous discovery in Venezuela back in the early 90s. And so there's a lot of focus from the institutional money around the world on that part of the world. So, we focus our early efforts on South America, and we were going down the path of acquiring an asset in that region of the world. And due to my contacts, my institutional contacts, I received a telephone call from a fellow in London who I respect, and he said, "Hey, look, this guy just came into my office, Phil Pascal, and who just passed away about a month ago. That he just walked into my office with this copper asset in Zambia that you should really look at. It's quite interesting." So I flew over to London and looked at the asset, and it was quite interesting looking, good grades, obviously, and it was already defined. So the resource was defined. We knew how many ounces or how many pounds of copper existed. We knew what the grade was. So enough work was done on the property for us to, make a decision. So we flew down to Zambia and looked at it and fell in love with it. And so I decided to buy it. Put Phil Pascal on as chairman of the company at that time, and that was his, position he received as part of the acquisition. And we went and raised the money, and we built the mill. And by the end of and that was 95, and then by 98 we're in production, and by 2000 we had 9,000 employees.
What happened? What happened with First Quantum?
I left in 2000, I went into semi-retirement until 2002.
Does it still operate down there?
Oh yeah. So First Quantum is $13 billion market cap. It's one of the largest copper companies in the world.
Wow.
Wow. Well, I must be not paying attention. I only trade Freeport for some reason.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
FCX.
Remember that we traded oh my God, we traded the hell out of that thing. Sorry, I probably know First Quantum. I'm just not paying attention.
13
highly
billion.
Successful. I can't take credit for the last, since I left, but but nevertheless, it's a very well respected, highly successful copper company.
So Jason, he said we could ask any question. He didn't care. So I'm going to let you ask some questions, and then I'm going to come back to what the future of First Majestic is after your questions.
Well, one question is, are you going to consider having any third parties sell First Majestic's bars and rounds from your store, or is it just going to be direct from your website?
The issue is that I don't want to sell silver wholesale.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of us opening our own mint is to capture that premium. We ran into an issue whereby, we're using, I don't want to name mints, we all know the mints that are there in the United States. And, I'm not sure if it was they looked at us as competition, but we would have, hundreds of thousands of ounces of silver sitting on the floor of these mints. And we'd have, orders lined up to produce, 100,000 1 ounce rounds, 1,000 kilo bars. And we have orders in the system. We need these ounces delivered because we've got orders for these ounces. And they would delay. And, it would take them 4 to 6 months to turn our ounces around. So, our inventories were quite high, sitting on the floors of these third-party mints, which is our silver, which we, of course, have to account for. But nevertheless, we just weren't able to get them out into the marketplace. So we said, screw this, and we're going to do this ourselves. And so I made the decision about a year ago. And we started buying up the equipment, and we got fantastic staff of mint professionals that have worked for many of the other minting companies that we're able to convince to come across. Now we put together a pretty fantastic management team. We're 2 weeks in. So after about a year of construction and building the team, we're now we're only going to produce 3 products to start with. Now we're producing kilo bars, 10 ounce bars, and 5 ounce bars. And we expect to triple our sales in 2024 compared to 2023.
Keith, so I was on the site today, and I noticed a lot of the stuff was sold out. What do you think the supply is going to be again? It's the 1 ounce bar, the 5 ounce bar, and the 10?
Yeah, we're producing 5 ounce bars, 10 ounce bars, and kilo bars.
On kilo bars.
Is that in Elko, Keith? Elko, Nevada?
No, in Las Vegas.
It's in Las Vegas. Well, we're right here.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on a second. The store is?
No, the mint is.
The mint's in Vegas.
It is, yes.
And how much do you think you can mint a year there?
We want our entire production to go through the mint. So we produce 10 million ounces. And don't forget, like I said earlier, that's 3 billion paper ounces I want to take off the market. So if I can get our entire production through the mint, that's going to really shake up the industry a little bit. These banks expect to see those ounces on their books, right?
Yeah.
And they're expecting to deliver those ounces to commercial buyers like the Sonys and the Teslas and the BMWs of the world. If I take that metal off the market, and what's that going to do to their book, right? And that's the whole strategy. If I can convince Coeur and Hecla and other mining companies to put their silver through our mint, that's going to take more metal off the market.
Do you think you'll have the capacity and the workers to do that?
The mint, as it sits today, has a capacity of about 3.5 million ounces. That's one shift, 4 days a week. In Nevada, for whatever reason, people only work 4 days a week. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but but
I wish that were the case.
They're playing.
I don't think that's the case.
They're playing Keno the other day.
Yeah.
So what we would do is put a second shift on, and
Is there?
But are you? You said it was 2 weeks ago. So is the store selling enough now where you would sell out that way, or is it just too early right now?
The store is still under First Majestic Silver. The first mint inauguration or launch is in a couple of days, and we'll put out a news release once that happens.
Will you have an actual retail storefront where Jason Bartholomew could walk in?
It's funny. It's funny you say that because I was actually talking to my VP the other day, and I said to him, "Hey, let's find a little store on the Strip, and there's just a little postage stamp. It doesn't have to be big.
Yep,
just something small. So because there's so much traffic, and it'd be great to have a little kiosk or a little store on the Strip. So we may do it."
Well,
we'll have to talk about that.
It's so funny. He says funny stuff. Do you have any idea how long we've been talking about being able to sell your silver? We probably been talking about it for what, a couple of years, right?
For sure.
Because how long have you been considering going? I mean, as long as I can remember. So maybe I'm wrong in timing. No. Maybe it's because I'm 54. It's a blur.
Keith's the only one. Have we
not been saying this for like ever? No, like maybe he'll let us sell his silver.
Keith's the only one that has. Well, to my knowledge, Keith is the only one that had the cojones to do this. In my from what I've seen.
Can you not say balls on a podcast?
Yeah, all right, the balls.
Well, Keith, the reason we say this because we have a fairly big following, and we wanted to actually, we were actually thinking about, hey, you could buy this through us, and you guys would be here, and that's a whole different conversation, I guess, for something offline.
Well, what we should do is create a stamp with your name on it.
Well, we would like a risk off or a risk on.
A stamp with my name
bar
on it.
or some advertisement or something, because that's the whole thing. We're getting contacted. We just signed a deal with a third party and to produce ounces for them with their seal on it, their stamp on it. So we're going to be approaching hockey teams, baseball teams, football teams, colleges, universities, these special runs that other mints don't want to do. It's a headache for them.
Indy 500 special.
If you think about, I guess I know someone involved with the Indy 500. Do you know anyone?
Yeah, I know somebody.
I do too. We have an Indy 500 team.
Todd Ault podcast coin.
No. We got better names than that. No, you don't want to put my name on a coin.
We have an Indy team.
We have an Indy team.
Oh,
we race it. They're the biggest race in the world, the Indy 500. So, but you think you're going to eventually take all your production offline?
That's the goal.
I want to squeeze all these banks.
Wow, that's an interesting idea.
This is amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
But in terms of selling it, though, right now the process is using your bullion store.
Yeah, it's all online. We have 85,000 shareholders worldwide. So our shareholders are probably 30 to maybe even as high as 50% of our sales. And we don't advertise. So now that the mint is going to be up and running, we're going to put a PR budget behind it. We're going to do a little bit of advertising and try to get those sales ramped up.
When will you have the 1 ounce rounds?
Probably June, July. That equipment is not on site yet. It's been ordered, but it doesn't arrive until April, May, and it's going to take a while to get it up and running and so on. So,
but you have the bars in production now?
Yeah.
Okay.
The bars are in production.
Yeah.
Can anyone buy silver through you and just leave it stored with you, or do they all have to take delivery?
We've been debating that internally for some time, and of course, storing has its own risks around it, and we're just in the early stages of running the economics on that. We haven't made a decision, but I think in some cases it could make sense.
Keith, do you anticipate? This all comes together here. So Jerritt Canyon, do you anticipate that you might reopen Jerritt Canyon if the conditions are favorable and everything comes together, and then you start minting gold as well?
There's not a lot of money in minting gold because it's such high value. People aren't willing to pay the premiums on it. Gotcha. Your cost of stamping a gold coin is the same as stamping a silver coin. But yet, for whatever reason, you can, that percentage or that markup on silver is just much greater. If you get $50 on a gold coin above spot on a percentage basis, that's quite small. But you get $2 or $3 on a silver coin, it doesn't sound like a lot, but on a percentage basis, it makes a big difference. So. We're really focused on silver. I'm not sure if we might do some small runs on gold, but that's not the focus. But regarding Jerritt Canyon, yeah, for sure. Like our expectations are to get that mine back up and running. To be quite frank with you, when we bought that a couple of years ago, we should have shut it down on day one. But we didn't want to be that Canadian mining company that bought this mine in Elko, Nevada. Third largest city in Nevada that laid off 500 workers on day one. We just didn't want that press. So we figured, okay, let's keep it open. We know the flaws. We know the issues. Let's make the investment. Let's keep everyone employed, and let's try to get this done. And it just turned out that it was just too costly. We're burning way too much cash, and we underestimated the investment, unfortunately. And we had to shut it down. And so we're going to reset, start from scratch, and which we're doing right now, and make the investment over the next 24 months and then get it back, hopefully, up and running in 2026.
Yeah, that's one of only 3 in the state, correct me if I'm wrong, that has the roaster, which is highly valuable. And then you bought that from Eric Sprott, right? And he's a large shareholder of First Majestic. So,
that's right.
Eric is the largest shareholder of First
No,
Majestic.
but he's
what? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the PSLV ETF.
Right.
PSLV is, it's my opinion, is the most, if you're going to get exposure to silver through an ETF, that would be the one to do it. They actually take delivery of silver.
Yeah, they actually own the silver.
Yeah. So unlike SLV, which is probably a JP Morgan Chase product
they just own paper. They don't own paper. So you don't own physical metal.
Yeah.
What do you make of the Costco?
It's pretty fascinating.
I'm beyond fascinated.
There's massive demand, which tells me that, Keith has something here for sure. And a retail store would be really cool. You could have like how open pit mines are done, everything you could have, the history of it. It's Elko, Nevada. You could talk about Jerritt Canyon, which was producing since 1981, like 1972 discovery. Like I went to Virginia City, which is the old Comstock, and Keith knows this. I went down into a mining shaft, like I don't even know how far down. And they're showing me how the miners used to do this stuff in the dark and how they would not hit their arm, chop their hands off, like with picks and axes. It's just like crazy. He said it's just like unbelievable that they're selling silver, the way it's harvested and the production and how hard it is for $25 an ounce in fiat, which that's another topic, how it's priced in fiat. I don't like that.
Keith, if you got into Costco with your silver and they said we want to sell $100 million worth, would that be possible or not?
Well, our total revenues last year were 600 some odd million. So it would be a bit of a challenge.
But it would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would be fun to try. Logistically, I'm not sure how we'd pull it off, but yeah, could always.
And when you book your total revenues, is that like just the actual ending sell price for what you sell your silver or your gold at? Is there any other revenue from it other that's not mining related?
Well, the mint, of course, would be included in our total revenues. No, it's just the sale of metal, silver and gold would be our total revenue line. And it's reported, in our financial statements, and the number is around 600 million.
So when you see people, and I apologize because this is an education for me. We wanted to talk to you forever, but I'm just not as smart about metals as I am, I guess, with stocks. But and I don't know if I'm smart there after 34 years. I still think I'm learning stuff every day there. Is the Monexes of the world that sell, I guess, precious metals, silver directly, are they going to get it from someone like you and reselling it, or is there just a big enough spot market where they're lining it up and reselling it to someone else? Like I'm perplexed as to how there isn't enough silver to sell, yet the price is I still just, it doesn't make any sense to me. I know it doesn't. You said it doesn't make sense to you either, but like you're selling 600 million worth of metal a year. Right. So who's buying it besides your shareholders? Who's buying it?
Well, it's all commercials. So without the mint, we have a trader in New York who we phone up and or email, and I say sell 100,000 ounces at $25 an ounce, and he sends an email back, sold. So that 100,000 ounces, they cut a check to us within a couple of days. After that sale, that metal goes through the refinery, gets spit out in 999, 1,000 ounce commercial bars, and that buyer or the trader tells the refinery where to send that metal. So it'll go to ABC Electronics Company in California, or it'll go to a window manufacturer somewhere. It'll go wherever. It'll go to a freezer manufacturer, whatever. So we don't actually see that part of the business because the traders take care of all of that. So they send it wherever it goes. It all goes commercial.
And you have to deliver physical delivery. They're 1,000 ounce commercial bars, right?
Yeah.
And you're told where to deliver it, and you deliver it to the electronics company. You got paid, and that's it, right? And I presume that's a different margin than you just selling. Can you sell for spot, or do you have to kind of edge that back a little bit for the trader, or what happens?
No, the trader deals with that, so they get paid from the buyer a commission for that trade. We sell it at spot. So
Gotcha.
If silver's trading at $25 right this moment, we get paid exactly $25.
So then because they're not minted, like the ones he's selling, they have to go through the mint. That adds a cost to them, right?
Yeah.
That's our cost.
Yep.
So that's our cost. So the dory bars from the mine get shipped to the refinery. In our case, Asahi in Salt Lake City, because that's the primary refinery that we use. And they charge us, it's not very much. It's like 25 cents an ounce. So our dory bars are 95 to 97% silver, and they refine it down to 999 or 49s, and that's what they sell.
Got it.
Right. So for us to then resell them, so it's very interesting. It sounds like to me, and there's of course lifting costs, which I'm not going to get into, but the cost of you getting that silver out of the ground is the difference between spot and your margin. Is how you make your money. Got it.
That's right. Yeah. And our costs right now are about, $15, $16 an ounce. So, we're selling at 25. So it's, we're making okay money. It's not huge, but it's not bad.
So you've been at First Majestic for, it sounds like 22 years. You're doing 600 million in sales. You have this initiative for the bullion store. You might open up the one on the Strip in Vegas. You're going to try to take all that commercial paper out of the market and sell through your mint. You got 85,000 shareholders worldwide. How old are you now?
63.
You're sick. Well, you look better
Wow,
than
you
me.
look great.
Wow, you look great. I thought you were my age. Jesus Christ. What are your plans for the future?
Keep building. Our goal is to become the largest silver company in the world. So,
So a small goal. I got you.
it's you got to have goals, right? It's not easy. The problem is with silver, it's such a rare mineral. And people don't understand this. Jason brought up earlier in the conversation that we're mining 7 to 1. So for every 1 ounce of gold we mine worldwide, we only mine 7 ounces of silver. And and we're trading at 85 to 1. Which is like bananas. Explain that one to me. So that tells you that silver is a lot rarer than the market thinks it is. And I can tell you that we scour the planet looking for silver mines, good silver mines. We could load our portfolio up with gold mines tomorrow if we wanted to. If we wanted to become a gold company and forget about silver, that would be like a matter of just a couple of months of deals. But silver, it's shockingly how rare it is, we are looking to build through acquisition, but it's tough. It's really tough.
What I want to talk about Nevada. It's just, the silver state. It was originally big time silver. Is there opportunity still in Nevada to go find silver mines, or does that not exist anymore?
It is. You had Howard Hughes, you had Charles Schwab as very early investors in Nevada. In the silver belt. Tonopah, is a famous area in Nevada. Which produced a ton of silver. There's a couple of junior companies active there, which First Majestic is shareholders of. We own positions of a couple of juniors that are active in that area. We've done site visits and we continually watch this silver space, looking for potential acquisitions. But, our shareholders would not be too pleased with me, if we just go buy an exploration project. It doesn't do us any good. For us to move the needle, we need to buy something that's either in production or permitted, ready for construction. We can't wait 10 years for permits and all that stuff that needs to happen. So we let the juniors fight that battle and let them get to a point where it makes sense for us. And we've got toeholds in a number of juniors, and we're actively looking at Arizona, Nevada, Mexico, of course. We know Mexico very well, but even outside of United States and Mexico and Canada, Europe, Australia, we're pretty active.
Who owns First Majestic? I mean, what are your holdings as a public company relative to institutional holdings? What's the demographic look like of your shareholder base?
Well, it's all public, but I own over 4 million shares. My share position has never gone backwards, except when I got divorced. My ex-wife took half my position, unfortunately. But since then, it's
I don't know anyone that's ever had that problem, Keith. You're the only one that's ever had that issue.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, it's still bittersweet, but nevertheless. But ever since then, my position's always gone up over the years, and we have, I guess, the biggest would be Van Eck. They own 20 million shares or some crazy amount. And then a bunch of ETFs. We're about, probably 40% institutionally held, and the rest would be retail. We have a very large retail shareholder base, predominantly United States. We've got a huge retail shareholding in the United States. We're broadly followed in the mining sector, in the silver space. Germany, Switzerland, Austria, UK. We've got very large shareholders over there as well.
You talked about what you presently have, and it just from a layman's perspective, we're talking to a layman like me. How many years of production do you have left with your current stuff you have? If you didn't make any new acquisitions and you mined this all in as far as you could into the ground, how much production do you have left?
It's always, a tough question because these are underground mines. And these are veins that you never know when they end. They can end tomorrow or they can go on for many, many years in the future. An open pit mine is quite defined. You can drill it out, you know exactly what's there, and you can actually put a life of mine around it, and it's pretty certain. But underground mines are not the same. And economically, it never makes sense to drill because you blow your brains out drilling it out because these veins go on for kilometers and kilometers and kilometers, and it just doesn't make sense. So you try to keep the life of mine between 3 to 5 years. As a mining company, that's kind of a magic number. That way you can have, you can have long-term plans and so on and so forth. But, our biggest mine, San Dimas, has been in production for 300 years. I don't know when it's going to end. No time that we can measure. Santa Elena, on paper, it has a 7-year mine life, but it's going to be, much longer than that. Lincoln Tata, our small mine, it's always been plagued by a very small or short mine life, 2 to 3 years, because that's the nature of that particular type of ore body. So it would cost way too much money to expand that. So we just keep it at 2-3 years. And we hope it'll just keep, we've owned that mine since 2005, and the mine life has always been 2 to 3 years.
You have a lot of gold coming out of those too. It looks
San Dimas and Santa Elena?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
74,000 ounces.
Yeah, San Dimas is 50-50 silver gold, and Santa Elena is 60-40 gold silver.
Yeah, those are nice. They're all underground too, which avoids any kind of things that are going on with the regime change down there. A lot of people don't realize that.
Well, I was actually going to ask that question about the Mexico potential ban of open pit mining. Is that going to happen? Or is that what's the status there?
Well, it's likely not going to happen, but it's a lot of politicking. AMLO's, he's I hate to say anti-investment, but I guess it's to be kind to him. I guess that's the best way of putting it. He doesn't like foreign investment. Period.
Yeah.
It's as I said earlier in the interview, 20 years ago when I put the company together, Mexico was a little bit of a different country. Permitting back then was 4 to 6 months to permit a mine, and today, it'll take you a couple of years to permit the same situation. So it's become a lot more difficult, and we're hoping that the elections that are coming up on June 2nd are going to change things. Rumors are that we more or less know who the incoming guard is, or the new president is going to be, and she seems reasonable. We hope. We're crossing our fingers. But look, we're in Mexico. That's the bottom line.
Yep.
You can't pick up a mine and move it to another country. So we have 4,000 employees in Mexico. We're a big player in Mexico. We're I think we're the third largest silver producer in the entire country. So we're active in 8 states. So we're pretty well known.
But so when I asked about the future of First Majestic, you being 63, would you ever be a seller, or is that not something that's on your radar in the future? Meaning selling all of First Majestic?
Well, First Quantum, going back to then, I'd use that as an example. If I'm on the road talking about the company, I'm on stage, and there's 500 people in the room listening to me do a presentation, I can't exactly be on the offer selling stock. That to me is immoral. So unless somehow you're Elon Musk and you say, look, I want to, my stock is at some kind of crazy number, and is it okay if I sell a little bit? And the shareholders say, okay, go ahead and do it. Okay, maybe there's an exception there, but for the I can't imagine that happening, but maybe.
No,
maybe
I think I did. I think I didn't make that. I think I didn't make that clear. I mean, like, would you be a seller of all of First Majestic? Meaning, would the company be sold? Because if you look at a production situation, right, and people want to have production, the stock seems very inexpensive. Would there not be an opportunity for someone just to buy all of the production and own the whole company, or is that not something that you see in the cards down the road? And by the way, we're totally speculating. I'm just getting your idea of what the next 10 years looks like.
Yeah, no, look, there's two things that are going to happen, in my opinion. Well, three things. Nothing happens, which would be one of the three. And we continue to grow our business and we become too big to buy. We're almost there now. There's only a couple players out there that are bigger than us in the silver space. So the other two things that could potentially happen is a big conglomerate, like, one of the big copper players, like a BHP, or, one of the huge mining.
Freeport.
Freeport. They decide, hey, we want to get into silver because, the silver story is so fantastic and we want exposure. Mm-hmm. So they want to buy a silver company and our name gets put on their table. So that could happen. The other thing that could happen is the technology companies, and this is kind of like my thesis, and I've said this before, but if you listen, you watch the movie iRobot, for example, you've got a conglomerate like an Apple, mm-hmm. Who owns basically the entire supply chain, and these big conglomerates, the technology conglomerates, they're at mercy of their supply chain, and they. They don't influence their commodity prices that they're having to be exposed to. So you see Elon looking at nickel and lithium. Whether that gets whether the rest of the industry looks at that as a go, and then they start looking at, hey, look, we want to own the entire mining sector. You look at, my VP Corp Dev showed me yesterday a slide. NVIDIA is 5 times the market cap of the entire mining sector, all metals combined, copper, coal, nickel, every single metal combined. NVIDIA is 5 times the market cap. Can you imagine?
Yes, I can actually. I'm in the equity market, and I own a data center in Michigan in my company, and 2 in Montana. And those data centers are selling for, I don't know, a few $1 billion. And I own a 300 megawatt data center that's presently running 30 megawatts. And I look at the valuation of our whole company, which is, I think, what our public market float is 15 million. Mm-hmm. It's insanity. And I actually think what you're selling silver for is insanity. I mean, I think you're literally giving it away. It's kind of crazy. And I don't mean that in a negative way, like you're doing it. I mean, the market is the market, but like it's insane how cheap it is. And I think it's a fascinating story that you're going to sell directly to people. You're almost democratizing the ability for people to get silver, to own your company and to buy it from you. I think it's just a great model. Jason's really turned me on to what you're doing and trying to get done. And I look forward to meeting you. I mean, it's really a fascinating model. We actually were kind of hoping we could help you sell it, but it sounds like to me, your shareholder base is going to do that for you. I'll be one of them because I noticed that I get a 50-cent discount when I'm a shareholder.
Yeah.
You got to just prove that you have 100 shares or so, right?
Yep. That's it.
For
friends and relatives, you get 50 cents, so you can get $1 off.
Oh, thank you so much.
Right.
What I'm perplexed about, though, Jason, is that you and I have been together many years in terms of doing business and doing a podcast. This was your number one guest.
Yes.
Okay, so ask a question that's hard for him, because this was your number one request of all the people you've ever wanted on the podcast, and you and I've done like almost 300 shows together. This is the guy. He's right in front of you. What's on your mind? He's going to have a beer with you, possibly. What does he want to ask him?
Well, I mean, we've covered a lot, but I wanted to get into like the macroeconomic geopolitical stuff, Keith. And by the way, he's the one that actually donned the name Triple Digit Silver. So
that's right.
I really believe that triple digit silver is in the near future, just my opinion. Mm-hmm. But Keith, you noticed today, just, and a granular look at the spot price of silver and gold today, it kind of pulled back a little bit. I don't think people understand with the Fed funds rates, how they can affect the precious metals market. And I try to tell people, well, if the Fed funds rates don't get cut, then it's not really bullish for precious metals. So you're seeing the Fed funds rate at like 5.5%. Jerome Powell comes out and says, he's doesn't anticipate cutting rates this year. Then he says he might cut rates. And then the CPI numbers come in hot. The PPI numbers come in hot. Retail sales are terrible. Revolving credit card debt is over $1 trillion. Well, here we have the infamous
that's fine.
U.S. debt
there
clock.
You go.
The national debt, $34.5 trillion. Over here.
By the way, I think that's $4 trillion higher than when you and I started.
Yes.
$4 trillion is accumulated.
And then all the fiat dollars, 40% of them has been printed into existence over the last 3 or 4 years. Here's another number. If you see my cursor here, revenue to GDP ratio, total debt to GDP ratio, 136%. That number is massive. Inverted yield curve for years and years. I mean, Keith, what do you think overall about the future of the world and specifically like North America as it relates to, cost of living, generations being usually each generation is improving their life and their wellness, one after the other. And now it seems like it might not be the case. I'd like to get your opinion on all that.
It's a mouthful.
Well, yeah, you brought up several points there. I should have written them down as you were speaking of them. But you're talking about headlines. Markets are driven by headlines, and that's it. It's very simple. The money will go where there's money to be made. So, what Powell does, what the Fed does, sure, it's got headline. It'll change the market on a short-term basis due to headlines because a bunch of hedge funds decide to trade against the news. But, it doesn't matter because gold is being bought up by central banks around the world, and that's what's driving price. We've never seen the central banks around the world buy gold as they're doing today. This is historic. Anything that's getting produced, they're buying. Simple as that. And then that's dragging silver along. The supply-demand fundamentals of silver have not showed up in a headline yet. It will. Gold's starting to be talked about, but still, you go on to CNBC or CNN, not that I watch those networks, but do they ever talk about gold? Gold has been reaching new highs, fairly consistently for the last couple of weeks, and I don't see it really being mentioned anywhere. The supply and demand fundamentals of silver, don't get mentioned anywhere. Is it the press or the banks don't want it to be mentioned because they're paranoid that if these headlines do actually get published, that all of a sudden further investments going to come into this sector and even cause them more grief? Because I can tell you, I'm sure that the financial system is getting stressed as a result of the move in metal prices over the last few weeks. I can almost guarantee that. So it's not in their best interest to see what's happening out there. So I think they're trying to purposely suppress this whole headline discussion. They want us to focus on NVIDIA and Apple and Microsoft and the top 7 or whatever they call them, and the retail investor. I've heard through what I read that there's investors coming into this market that are first time investors that are starting to buy these big high tech companies, which is pretty shocking. You look at 2000, and I remember it very clearly because I just left First Quantum in 2000, and I see the Nasdaq hitting 5,000 in March of 2000. After basically I don't know, like a 200 or 300% run over the previous 2-3 years.
Nasdaq 100 was crazy. It was parabolic. Yeah,
it was nuts what was happening, right? Y2K. Oh, geez. Remember Y2K?
Mm-hmm. I remember Y2K. I remember me buying ePay on a Friday at $9 and the following Friday being $99. One of the most insane situations ever. I was short Amazon. It went up $100 in a single day. By the way, buying Amazon then was still a winner.
Yeah.
But Keith, you're onto something because if you recall the Nifty 50 in the 70s, and I know you and I were a lot younger then, but the Nifty 50 dominated the world until they cracked. And when you owned Coca-Cola in 73, it didn't get back to parity till 83.
Wow.
And you got now 7 stocks basically sucking the oxygen out of the room. It's a scary proposition.
Well, and how long did it take for the NASDAQ to get back to 5,000?
10 years, I think, right?
Yeah, 15 years.
15
well,
years.
2015 it hit. So
right.
13 years or whatever it was.
Right. Took a long time for it to get back. It was a
Yeah,
it was a brutal hit. It was a brutal hit.
Yeah. And then what happened in the mining sector during that period of time, right? So and that's why I talk about money flows, headlines. So it's all to do with money flows. It's something, that people tend to ignore. But that all that money left the high-tech sector and it had to find a home. So it went into real estate, it went into mining stocks, it went into gold, silver. Gold was $250 an ounce in 2002. Silver was $5. Silver went up 10 times over the next 10 years. Gold went up 8 times in the next 10 years. And, the mining sector was just lit up and we had one of probably the biggest bull market in my career, over that period of time. And now we've gone into a 10-year bear market. And now we're just coming out of it. And who knows when this major market's going to crash, but I think it will. And it's going to, unfortunately, suck a lot of young people into it. I've got young kids and my kids say, oh, should I be buying this stock? Should I be buying that stock? And I say, should I buy Bitcoin? I say, no, just don't chase this stuff. Just, I give them some mining names and they own a couple. They own First Majestic and they own, some other, mining stocks I like. And I try to keep them away from, those big flyers because I'm paranoid that, there is going to be this huge crash, like we saw in 2000, that's going to last for the next couple of years. I think we're going to go into another 10-year run. And gold at, 2000 over the next 10 years, if you see the same move, does that mean 8 times gold from current levels? It seems like a big number to me, but, is that possible? I am a triple digit silver guy. I do think that silver is going to go north of $100 and, gold at 3,000, 5,000, silver at, 100, 150 an ounce. I think those are reasonable numbers.
So if you had 100 million extra laying around, you'd put it in silver?
I'd buy First Majestic for one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely buy more First Majestic.
That would get the ratios back historical too, Keith. If, that 30 to 50 to 1 sweet spot, that's very doable.
So he'd be long First Domestic for the move in the miners with
the leverage
silver.
is way better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you go back 20 years.
That was what I was asking you earlier, Keith. Come on. It took a while to get to that answer. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's $5. The leverage has got to be huge.
Yeah. No, it's between 200 to 300%. It depends.
Okay, so
over the last 20 years, and it's like,
let me give you my thesis on you. Okay, this is my thesis. So I was long MicroStrategies for being Bitcoin because I thought, okay, I got a software company paying a dividend, which is not really paying a dividend, but you get my point. Is I got an operating company I own, and they're long Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin doesn't have a yield, so I got this $500 million software company, and I'm long Bitcoin. So Bitcoin makes a move, right? So if you get long First Majestic, you got an engine of mining producing silver.
Yep.
And if silver makes a parabolic move, you got the move in silver and you got the fact that he's one of the few miners out there. You get a lot of leverage, right?
Yeah.
So First Majestic could make a run here from say $5 to 20 and you could be up 4x your money.
Yep.
That's 4x your money.
Even if silver went 2x.
Silver went up 2x.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I right? Is that the logic, or am I flawed?
Yeah, for historically, for every dollar move, and it works negatively as well. So don't get me wrong; it's not always positive. But for every dollar,
we owned some at 18 when it went down, so we know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for every dollar move, our stock would move $2 to $3 thereabouts.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Keith, I would be able to talk to you forever, but I have a meeting in downtown Vegas I got to go to, and I'm a little bummed because this took forever to get done, and and I'm sure you don't want to sit here on the for us. But I ask you two things. Hopefully, we can see on the 24th. But would you be willing to come back again in a couple months?
Sure, absolutely. Hopefully, we'll have $30 silver prices by then.
It would be great. We can't do it, but it would be great if we had him in the studio.
Yeah, it would be great.
Well, and you'll have one of our new kilo bars in your hand.
That's awesome. We appreciate you. Keith, really, First Majestic CEO and founder, Been doing this for 22 years with First Majestic, and before that with
First Quantum.
First Quantum, and obviously bullish on silver. We're super happy to have you here, and we will be directing. Obviously, this is a recorded episode. It is the what is today? The 14th of March.
Yep.
We'll make sure that you guys know about his store and how to become a shareholder and how to buy silver. Jason, you got so much of this stuff. You got silver everywhere, right?
Yeah, yeah. My wife said I could never sell my silver.
There you go.
We have possession of it.
Yeah, he has physical possession of.
Yeah.
We're big fans, Keith. We appreciate you being on the show, and good luck in the future. And we'll keep monitoring you, and we'll buy some shares, and hopefully we'll be seeing triple-digit silver.
Well, it's a great opportunity, Todd, and then Jason. I've watched your stuff historically. It's nice to be on your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Keith. Take care.
No, I'll explain to you real quick. But don't be rolling yet. There's a reason for it.
So I did get that right.